One of the big stories on Tuff Trax in 1990, Gravedigger's great start. A huge upset by a newcomer, and the rivalry between the world champion Equalizer and the new Bigfoot. Today, we review 1990's first 6 weeks. Again, everyone, I'm Scott Douglas with Army Armstrong and Chris Chapman. We collectively welcome you to Tuff Trax, reviewing the first 6 weeks of exciting action in 1990 on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. We opened things up with 3 weeks of action here on Tuff Trax in the Charleston, West Virginia Civic Center. Week number 1, right off the bat, what a way to get things going. The newly designed Outlaw, the Ford with Mike Wine against the Gravedigger. And Army, I'm not trying to offend these guys, but if you want to talk about the two guys who did the most mouthing in '89 and had to put it up or shut up in 1990, it was these two guys.
Well, Scott, you're either going to talk the talk or walk the walk, and one guy did it for Ford, the other one did it for Chevrolet. The rivalry's back for 1990.
We'll be taking a look at all 3 weeks of action at the Charleston, West Virginia Civic Center. Digger and Outlaw, watch how close they come across here. We'll see a bunch of those guys. We'll also see a huge surprise when Anthony Fortier brought out the Pony Express and shocked the world by beating the big boys in week number 2.
Now, this kid out of New Jersey really opened a lot of eyes, and he showed that it could be done. The American dream in a Ford they call the Pony Express.
We're also going to see one of the wildest runs of the year as Marvin Smith in the all-new Wild Hair shows us what he means by all-new. And not only a new wild truck, but a new wild image. We're going to take also a look at the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum, where Bigfoot returned. The new Bigfoot 8 had everybody talking and everybody rocking, but he didn't scare one Equalizer. I'll tell you, he didn't back down the Carolina Crusher either. Gary Porter continues to hang in there in a truck that is not necessarily state-of-the-art. It just keeps on ticking and keeps on winning. We'll also see King Krunch, the world champion Equalizer, and lots more in Memphis.
Well, Memphis was the showdown of the big blue truck. A lot of people were talking about Scott Stevens, about Porter, about the Equalizer, but the big story in Memphis was the first opportunity we had to see Bigfoot. And he had to go against competition such as Scott Stevens and King Krunch. Later on, we'll see what happened to Krunch. He paid the bill in Memphis.
He sure did. The Equalizer was back, as we said. It was our first look in 1990 at Krunch and at Equalizer and at Crusher when we got to Memphis. So we'll see them in the second half of our review today as the GMC of Krunch had a rough weekend. This was a good run, but you kind of teased it, Army. When you see Krunch later in the show, you're going to see what happens when you get a little out of control in TNT Monster Truck Racing. You know, David Morris and the Equalizer coming off that '89 World Championship in 1990. They served notice they are flat serious about defending it. Wild Hair, Marvin Smith has changed the name of his truck, and he backed up the word wild with his first run in Charleston, West Virginia. That's coming up next here on Tuff Trax. Tuff Trax is brought to you by Micro Machines, the most colossally collectible vehicles in the world. If it doesn't say Micro Machines, it's not the real thing. In Charleston, West Virginia at the Civic Center, we review early 1990 action with the superstars of monster truck racing here on Tuff Trax. We knew coming in that Wild Hair was going to be a story worth following. It was a whole new concept for a truck that had been around a long time, Army Armstrong. We're talking about the veteran Marvin Smith, the old stomper truck. Not only changes inside the truck, but also outside with the new paint job for the 90s. Marvin set a new persona for the 90s, and I think we found that out early on.
Yeah, when he lined up against the Thunder Chicken, you could tell that 1990, we're going to be looking at a new, starving Marvin Smith. He went into the right lane. He had lane choice in this round. Kid Rarig lines up in the left lane. Now, Kid Rarig has to be one of the most underestimated drivers in the sport. Marvin Smith knew it. He knew he was going to have to run as hard as he could. If you will, he was going to have to take it to the wall in Charleston, and look what happened.
He didn't take it to the wall. He took it through the wall at the Charleston Civic Center. As the Wild Hair is stopped only by the bricks and the concrete barrier, but not before he punched a hole in the wall at the Charleston Civic Center and tried to go right out the door the hard way. Marvin Smith right there handing out the killer box. But boy, he killed the wall right there. And you know, it was the crowd just obviously in awe at this point, all coming down to take a look at what happened to the Wild Hair. But I want to tell you, Marvin, I mean, he didn't want to hit the wall, but I think he's coming out saying, hey, I told you guys, I'm going all out in 1990.
Well, they had to. You know, the Thunder Chicken ran him real hard. Marvin came out, and I do want to add that the safety stops that the TNT people put there, they did their job. They absorbed a lot of the injury. The spectators were in no harm's way whatsoever. That's just part of racing monster trucks indoors, Scott.
They were able, once again, as we get a look here.
Watch the air. This is where he gets in trouble. A lot of air. Gets it way high. Now, the Thunder Chicken at this point has passed the finish line. Smith tries to back on the throttle. It won't come back for him, Scott. He is in trouble at this point.
Marvin Smith and the Wild Hair starting 1990 out literally with a bang, banging into the wall and through it at the Charleston, West Virginia Civic Center. You get a good look at it right there. Well, Marvin headed back to the pits, and so did our Chris Chapman. Chris able to catch up with the Wild Hair, Marvin Smith's wild new image, and certainly a wild new run to begin the new racing season with. Repairs continuing to the Charleston Civic Center, and they get things back in action and ready to race. But in the interim, Chris Chapman was talking to Marvin Smith about that wild run.
Marvin, not a very fun way to start 1990.
You know, Chris, I thought I kind of enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't enjoy the ride, but at least, like I said, when we came out to put on the show. That's what we're here for. That's what we're going to do.
Once again, you can see what happened, as Army explained it a moment ago. Wild Hair just losing control and through the wall.
One of the big problems monster trucks have is the actual stopping. You cannot stop a vehicle when it's bouncing in the air. The drivers have to get the chassis or all four wheels to settle before they can let the brakes work for them.
You see some damage, Army, to the Wild Hair, but it wasn't enough to keep him out of action. He came back later as a fast loser, but this guy here was going to be out pretty quickly. You can see the disgust on his face already. And it was transmission problems, wasn't it, Army, for Steve Wilke in USA 1?
You know, it's really amazing, Scott. These guys ran all last year. We were talking to them earlier. They never had one iota of problem with the transmission. First race of 1990, it won't pull itself up a 4-foot hill. You can see the torque converter actually caught fire. The TNT crew knocked it down, but a tough break for Wilke. He was really pumped up, and people that follow us know he's a very emotional individual. He wanted to start 1990 off with a win, not to be the case.
Certainly wasn't there in Charleston, and you can just see the look of disgust on his face right there as the USA 1 transmission has gone away, and they had to be pulled away from the starting line. USA 1, the 1988 world champion with Rod Litzow driving, has undergone several changes. This was not the kind of a start he wanted, Steve Wilke being the new driver on the new year. But Wilke bounced back, and we'll see him looking a little better later in the show here. Nonetheless, the True Value USA 1 went out on a hook to start 1990.
Yeah, well, you know, that a little adversity is not bad starting a year off. That kind of gets these guys fired up. Wilke's got something to prove now. To a lot of people, he's got it to prove. I don't believe he does. I think this guy is a good monster truck driver. Even at a True Value, you're going to see some wins before the year's over. Now, Thunder Chicken came back later in the competition, Scott.
Against the Outlaw. This is the semifinal. And it's Mike Wine's Outlaw Ford backing up all the big talk of '89 as the New Jersey truck works its way into the Monster Smash final to start 1990. What a big, big start this is for Outlaw and Mike Wine. And I'll tell you, at the time, beginning 1990, we thought, hey, the Ford might be playing for the points lead throughout this year, but this was really a great start, and it wouldn't be backed up in succeeding weeks, as we'll see.
Well, Scott, as you know, Chevrolet had won the World Championship twice in a row. There's only been 2 World Champions crowned. Wine believed he could put that Ford in the national points lead, and he thought he was going to start right here in Charleston. However, 2 big bad Chevrolets had different ideas. One of them out of Missouri that goes by the name of the Wild Hair. He's already put it in the wall today. And look who's sitting next to him with those awesome red lights. The Grave Digger and the Wild Hair square off to see who's going to get a hold of that Ford.
Dennis Anderson keeps Vikings nose down with a good, strong run. Moved into the Monster Smash final. So it would be Dennis and the Outlaw hooking up in the Monster Smash. And, you know, I think Chris Chapman really enjoyed it because all the interviews she did with these two guys in '89, and you too, Army, were these guys talking about beating each other. Well, here we had them in the first final of 1990.
Chevrolet Ford, a classic battle. Look at this. Nose down attitude. Puts the Gravedigger in the winner's circle. Now, this is exactly the same way he started off '89. Will 90 be different? We're going to be staying tuned all year long to find out if Gravedigger can hold on.
So the Gravedigger took the early points lead, but he got lassoed on the second day in Charleston. We'll review that action in just a moment. Hi again, everyone. I'm Scott Douglas. Welcome to Tuff Trax. We're in Charleston, West Virginia again this week for incredible action with the superstars of monster truck racing on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. Qualifying has just been completed. I'm out here in the pits with a guy who is part of a big story already developing here in Charleston, the wild hair and Marvin Smith. You're going to see the incident in qualifying when Marvin actually, well, you just tell us about the run when you and Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger got together at the end.
Well, we qualified together, and we both came over the hill, and we got to the cars, and he took a little bit of my lane, and I was wanting to go to the same hole he was, so one of us had to give. Neither one gave, so we just had a little bit of a, not real bad, a little bit of a, you know, smack, little kiss. Let's call it a kiss.
Little love tap, I guess.
Love tap, yes, you know, hey, if you're going to run, you got to run for it. You can't play with it.
You know, Marvin, the new paint job, you're in the wild hair now. You were fast qualifier last week. You ran and you smacked the wall. This week you come out and you're into a Gravedigger. It looks like a new Marvin Smith, is it?
I tell you what, the competition is so fierce out here today. You know, now last year, like I had said before, I wasn't really happy with my season. This year we come out here to win. We're not here to hurt anyone, but we're here to run tough and be competitive and go for it.
That was how the second day of racing got underway in Charleston, West Virginia. Then USA 1 met Buffalo Tremor. First round action. And USA 1 continues to have transmission problems. You saw, Army, how slow he was off the line.
Well, the Chevrolet not able to put the horsepower to the ground. The engine's working, the chassis is working, the transmission is not. And that is the only piece of equipment they had no problems with last year. It's coming back to haunt them now. And speaking of coming back to haunt you, this kid comes from out of nowhere and puts his name in a record book. Tell us about it, Scott.
I think, Army, we can really classify this as our first big upset of the year. I mean, we had seen some mild surprises. Thunder Chicken got off to a good start, but this was the first true upset. I don't think anybody who had followed TNT Monster Truck Racing expected Pony Express to run with Outlaw, more or less to beat him right here. They lined up, and the kid, Anthony Fortier out of New Jersey, said, hey, I got a little something for you.
And boy, did he have a handful of the Outlaw. Look at this. Little 68 Mustang nailed the Outlaw to the wall. The only person that was not surprised was Anthony. He came out with a big grin on his face going to the final.
Boy, he sure did, and we see him popping out of the car right now. And, you know, it's something interesting to note that he's out of New York City, you know, from just across in New Jersey, a suburb of New York, and he has that New York persona. It's like, hey, he's coming down here in the big time, and he was not afraid one bit of challenging these guys that he knows are the established superstars, the true major leaguers in the sport. He had no awe. I mean, he knew he was running with the big boys. He said, I can run with them. He wasn't even afraid of Army Armstrong in the interview circle.
Oh, looks like the Mac tools are working for you on that rascal tonight. You're laying down some super shots out here.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. It's all running good, and everything's coming together all in one shot. I had a real bad night last night. Put it all back together. I seem to be doing good. I hope to take it all the way.
You run a lot of exhibition stuff all around the country. This is the first opportunity I've had to see you actually race with these TNT monster trucks. How do they stack up? Are they what you thought they would be as far as being tough?
There's a couple of them that I don't think I really got a chance against, but I'll just give it my best. There's a lot of guys out there that are strong running guys. They do it for a living. It's a hobby for me. I'd like to make it a living. We're working at it.
Tell you what, you've impressed a whole lot of people. Good luck in that next round.
Thank you, Army.
This hobby was about to take on some serious overtones for Anthony Fortier, but let's first go to some other action, and we'll get back to the budding story out of Charleston. Gravedigger came out against Mopar Magic. Dennis Anderson picked up right where he left off from the week before.
Notice the bounce on the truck. This track is conducive to the Gravedigger laying down great shots because of the bounce the truck takes over the hill. Scotty actually lands on top of the cars and powers through. That's the reason he was so tough.
At this point, the script looked like exactly what we thought it was. Gravedigger mowing down the competition. Equalizer and Bigfoot weren't here yet. Neither was Carolina Crusher. And Gravedigger was dominating the show. Or so we thought. A semifinal between Thunder Chicken and Pony Express. And again, I think we expected Thunder Chicken to win here.
Now, Kid Rarig has been around this game for many, many years. Everybody's looking at the yellow truck. That is everybody but the driver of the Pony Express. And that rascal is going to the finals. A dream come true. The All-American story. Kid comes out of New Jersey up against the big boys, and now he's going into the bottom of the ninth with the bases loaded. And he pull off the win. We're going to find out later.
You know, the sport has really evolved into lighter trucks, but Pony Express weighing almost 15,000 pounds, and on this one track, the weight helped him. It wouldn't help him in a lot of places.
That's exactly right. This track was good for both he and the Gravedigger. You notice how they stayed down, but when they gave the first place check away, it went to a kid that had never received one before, the Pony Express.
I don't know how else to put it except to call it a stunning upset. And at the time, Army, I think we were all in a state of shock. He had done it.
I know Dennis Anderson was just by the look on his face.
And Anthony Fortier celebrated a huge victory as he knocked off the legendary Gravedigger. Dennis Anderson had to settle for second place behind the kid, and you can see the excitement right there. The Pony Express had done it. When we come back, Gravedigger seeks a little vengeance. Scott Douglas, Army Armstrong, Chris Chapman looking back at the exciting start to 1990 here on Tuff Trax with the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. Our third week of action from Charleston, West Virginia, the Outlaw Ford, the USA 1 Chevrolet, and the nightmare for Steve Wilke continued. Army, he couldn't even get off the starting line. Again, transmission problems, and the thing is on fire.
Well, what happened? The torque converters are getting so hot, they're just exploding. Now, Tracy Smart, the track crew, they know to look for it. This is the third week in a row they've had the problem. Well, somebody better get back to the drawing board because they have got a weak link in that truck, and it's called the transmission right now, Scott.
Steve Wilke in utter disgust, and I'll tell you, Charleston, West Virginia was a beautiful trip, but I'm sure it's one he doesn't want to relive again. He'd like to go back to Charleston, but with the torque converter working. Here was the revenge match. Pony Express and upsetting the week before. This time, Digger wins, but not by much.
Not by much at all. As a matter of fact, if Gravedigger hadn't taken the bounce he did, I think the Pony Express would have had him again.
So in the quarterfinal round, Gravedigger had gotten his revenge, but the Pony Express showed his win the week before was no fluke.
Well, Dennis, by 300ths of a second, you reel this kid back in, but he's not going to roll over a bit for you, is he?
No, he's not. I knew he was going to gouge on him. We were talking back there in the back, and he's got it out for me. I got it out for him. You know, what can we say? It's racing.
Well, he's won one, you've won one. You'll get together later in the year. We're going to let you get back to the pit area. What a super job you've done this year. You've really, really impressed a whole lot of people.
Yeah, we've done some good work. Just a little frustrated right now, and I don't even know what to say.
Nothing to be frustrated about. You've made a lot of friends here. We're impressed with your truck. We look forward to seeing you later on the tour. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Army.
His toughest nemesis dispatched from Charleston on week number 3 here on Tuff Trax. Gravedigger then went to the semifinals against that Outlaw Ford. And Dennis Anderson wanted to take no more chances in Charleston. He was also taking no prisoners, Army.
Well, Scott, 1990 should literally be a battle royal as the Outlaw and the Gravedigger are both going to be rolling out with new trucks when they go outdoors. Advantage indoors, Gravedigger for now.
The other semifinal was Nightlife Dave Wieczorek from Grand Island, Nebraska against John Kwasniewski's Buffalo Tremor.
Johnny K comes out, takes a real weird bounce. Nightlife, maybe go real hard after each other. The winner, Nightlife, by the closest of margins, Scott.
We're going to look at it one more time and see just how close it was as Nightlife and the Buffalo Tremor fighting for the right to meet the Digger.
It's amazing in this sport, the win and loss is determined by the bounce of a truck. Look at that. Good bounce for Nightlife. Just about 100th of a second win for him over the kid from New York.
As you mentioned, the nose kind of dug in on him just a little bit. Then the Monster Smash.
Digging the nose, digging in. Look at the Gravedigger. Plants the front end. Whoa, Mo's got into the wall. But takes that second win of 1990. The Gravedigger flexing this muscle in West Virginia.
2 out of 3 for Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger in Charleston, West Virginia. Dennis Anderson had dispatched the field in Charleston, but he knew waiting for him in Memphis, Tennessee, were the Equalizer, the Carolina Crusher, and for the first time in 90, the brand new Bigfoot. It's coming up next here on Tuff Trax. But first, here's where TNT action is coming to you live. With Army Armstrong and Chris Chapman, I'm Scott Douglas with the TNT Monster Truck Challenge on Tuff Trax, the Mid-South Coliseum, Memphis, Tennessee. You just saw how Gravedigger dominated the first weekend of racing in Charleston, West Virginia. But here in Memphis, it was a different story for Dennis Anderson. He had problems even before qualifying.
It's coming out from one line on the left. Dennis? It started coming out in the second one, too. So you got pressure on the line. You got pressure pushing out both lines.
Yeah, I ran into a problem. We came in after introduction. I didn't even get to qualify tonight after driving 800 miles. It's kind of disappointing that a little piece like this could stop my truck, but nevertheless it did. You know, I came back into the pit here. We had a steering problem. We started ripping the cylinders apart. That wasn't it. We came back to the pump and found it. And it's so far along now that it's too late for us to even try to qualify, so we're going to be out tonight. We'll come back again next week and be stronger than ever.
There it was, the debut of 1990. Really, 2 debuts, Army Armstrong. Our first look on Tuff Trax at Awesome Kong, who had not raced the last half of 89, and Bigfoot, who had virtually taken all of 1989 off.
They took a sabbatical in 1989 to build a new Bigfoot race truck. Remember, it's a whole new philosophy. The stripes on the side tell you it's a new design, new developed truck. The racing truck of General Tires and Bigfoot team up to really flex their muscle.
The new Bigfoot, it's Bigfoot 8, built on a series of new innovations, one of them being a suspension that's not leaf springs, it's not even coilovers, it is what they call counter levers. Army Armstrong is with the driver, Andy Brass.
Andy, we talked about you having this field covered early. All the other drivers are trying to figure it out. Now you come out and really throw a trump card on them. You go to the other lane. Are you got so much confidence it doesn't make any difference where you run this truck?
Yeah, that's about right. You know, the truck's running real good tonight, and lane choice is not real particular to me right now at this moment. You know, both lanes are looking pretty good. We're landing about the end down on the ramp, so it's just kind of where I want to start out on the hill.
The old and the new, the Carolina Crusher, the old war horse that's been hanging in there, running strong in 1990, despite the fact that it's really, by today's standards, kind of obsolete. Crusher still gets a lot out of it. But running against the new Bigfoot, it was clear the future's on the left side of the screen.
All the monster truck drivers were walking around after this weekend, kind of like looking in your rearview mirror and see flashing blue lights. They knew that Bigfoot was in town and they were in big trouble. Here's proof of it right here.
More than a length victory on an indoor course over a good truck. That really served notice right there. Andy Brass and Bigfoot had moved into the Monster Smash final his first week out of the chute, and he had taken the Carolina Crusher, who had been the runner-up a year before, and just flat blew him away.
Brass with a 4-second qualifying, a 3:75 first round, a 3:72 second round. What can I say? What's up next?
Well, we keep getting a little faster. The track's getting a little bit better. You know, I'm getting a little used to the truck, trying to get it adjusted to the track. I'm feeling pretty good right now. I think the truck's going to be running good, so we're really looking to take it tonight.
We also got a chance to listen to Scott Stevens while he drove King Krunch.
I've given Scotty a different lineup on the cars. They were going to try something a little different in this lane. This is a bad lane.
Scott Stevens falling there to David Morris in the Equalizer. There was something pouring from underneath the defending world champ. We'll watch it again, Army.
Well, you folks at home not only had an opportunity to listen to Scott Stevens and his crew chief, but you're also on board with one of the new onboard cameras we're going to be bringing to you throughout 1990 to give you a chance to actually ride in the monster trucks. Here you go, America.
This is what it's like to jump in there with Scott Stevens and run that course, taking a beating on the inside. And, of course, the truck absorbs the pounding as well. There you can see Equalizer was able to get the minor problems fixed, and he came out showdown number 1, the defending world champ against Bigfoot.
Well, everybody was on their feet. You can hear a pin drop, but Equalizer, a Tennessean, wins in Memphis. Look at the excitement.
Bigfoot had come, but Equalizer was up to the challenge. His first head-to-head matchup went to the Equalizer, but they'd race again. Continuing our review of all the excitement from the first 6 weeks of racing in 1990 on the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. This is week number 2 in Memphis, Tennessee. First matchup between Bigfoot and Gravedigger, and it looks like the Digger went after him, Army.
Boy, Gravedigger hooked real hard, went to the right. Both drivers did some heads-up driving. That was just pure luck right here. The in-shot camera is going to give you a good view. I want you to watch the right front tire of Bigfoot. He bounces. Now, for all intents and purposes, he's out of control right now. And barely gets that rascal shut out.
I'll tell you, it's a good thing he didn't bounce the other way, or it would have been a head-to-head collision with the Gravedigger. Army worked his way over after that race to talk to Andy.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you're on top, there's only one place to go, buddy, and everybody's trying to knock you down this thing any way they can. Anderson gave you a handful right there.
That's right. Dennis did give a good run. But the Ford Bigfoot, you know, we've been after the Chevy Digger for a long time and finally come around to where we got him.
Well, the vehicle seemed to go decently well for you, but Anderson had his hands full. He was all over the place. Are you aware of him being in trouble on a run like that, or are you too busy just driving your truck?
Well, I kind of caught Dennis in the side mirror there once, and I seen him coming over. I knew he was going to hit the hill hard. Dennis's truck, he's known to be squirrely, so figuring he'd hit the hill hard, he's going to be out of control a little bit. We just tried to run a straight race. I seen him, and also I tried to hang off to my left side a little bit to keep him hitting me.
Once again, Army was able to talk to King Crunch driver Scott Stevens.
Scott Stevens, this is Army Armstrong. You copy me?
Copy, sound real good.
How about this kid from New York, buddy? He's stalking you in that door. He's got blood in his eyes. How you going to handle him?
It's going to be tough. He's going to be the toughest race he's had all night.
Scott Stevens, what's going through your mind right now? You're set and ready to go and everything. He's kind of coming in the light slow. You nervous or what exactly are you thinking about?
Well, it's still pretty good, Army. The truck's running good. We're running a little quicker. You know, he has beat us a couple times outdoors, but right now, you know, our truck's working good indoors. But he won last weekend, though.
So Scott Stevens, you can hear his thoughts. He knows Buffalo Tremor's going to be a handful as they go head-to-head in Memphis, Tennessee. Buffalo Tremor, King Crunch. Now we're going to go back to that in-cab conversation. We'll get to listen to Scott Stevens and crew chief Crash Ford on this run. Let's listen in.
Scott, are you okay?
All right, Army.
Okay, Scott, the front suspension is tucked out of the truck. There's no liquids or anything coming out. Looks like you're out of this one, though, babe.
We're all right. Did you break a leash for him?
Now, the front came off the right side, and when you landed, everything went up underneath it.
Fixable for tomorrow night?
I don't think so.
Out of here.
Take a yoke. Sheared off all the bolts into the rear end.
Okay, Scott, are you okay, first of all?
Oh, yeah. You know, I thought it was going to be a bad ride, but, you know, the truck did okay.
But the chassis just separated and it rolled back on you, or what?
Yeah, the front leaf spring just broke, and when it broke, it just let the front end roll out from under the truck.
This mean we're going to be seeing a new King Crunch truck, or what?
Oh, it's not hurt that bad. It, you know, might be running, you know, next week for sure.
You're the guy that said they're going to be building them like sprint cars, going to tear them up, put them all right back together. Is that the philosophy you're using on this?
The bad thing about it, we got all our springs just freshened up for Houston in 2 weeks, and they're at home, so we'll have to have them flown up here for the next race, but we'll be all right.
The damage to King Crunch was almost unbelievable, Army.
Scott, you know, it's really interesting. He just picked up a sponsor, and the sponsor is the seat sponsor, the Cobra seat people, and that impact was absorbed tremendously by this particular seat. It's a racing seat, and he told me when the interview was over, he's kind of glad he's got these guys on his side. He'll be back another day, but look at this next run coming out. You talk about horsepower, Ford and Chevrolet at its best in Memphis.
Bigfoot and Buffalo Tremor, and once again, Bigfoot is blowing them out. The Foot comes up with a very impressive win.
Bigfoot is so quick. It's amazing seeing that truck run so quick, and you got to remember, that truck is penalized 2,000 pounds. He must weigh 2,000 pounds more than anybody else because he's running a new experimental chassis.
He also sounds a little different. Army asked Andy Brass about a popping noise.
Andy, when the truck comes right across the finish line, it's making a popping sound. What is that?
Well, a lot of it is we're hitting up against our rev limiter, you know, which when it does, it starts cutting out the cylinders and then it backfires.
So it just actually stops the engine or hesitates it just for a second and lets it come back to life?
Yes, it does. That way it keeps us like if we put a button in, you know, say a 6,500 RPM button, which won't let the motor get over 6,500. What it is more like a safety factor keeping our motors together.
Awesome Kong, Steve Cain, Killeen, Texas, squaring off with the Equalizer, the defending world champion David Morris out of Springfield, Tennessee. You talk about your heavyweight battle, here you go.
You talk about horsepower, you're going to see a whole lot of it here, but you're going to see something else in the truck closest to it. That'd be the Equalizer, the suspension. You can look under the trucks and see the new suspension. It looks like yellow springs, but believe me, they will flat work. There you go. Made it look easy, Scott.
Boy, he sure did, putting away a very, very strong running Awesome Kong and Steve Cain. So Equalizer had worked his way for the second week in a row into the Monster Smash final against Bigfoot. As we showed you a little earlier on this show, Morris won round one in the Equalizer. Could he do it again? Army asked him.
All right, Dave, you're going to the finals, baby. This is just nothing but an old-time street fight. You pull the gloves off, you go after each other, no love lost. And I know one thing for sure. He doesn't want you to beat him 2 weeks in a row, and he told me anything he's got to do to beat you, that's what he's going to do.
Well, I'm going to make him push his truck to the limit because I'm going to be the Equalizer. I'm going to run it just as hard as it'll go. So maybe I can hang in there and take a win.
Army in this final, the most controversial moment so far in 1990. Watch the start light closely, friends, and we'll examine it in replay.
Yeah, when the light turned green, it was a good, clean start. However, the track crew said, no, he finally started giving the win to Bigfoot. However, in my opinion, and by looking at the camera, that kid just cut a perfect light.
You really got to feel for David Morris and Equalizer in this all-out war with Bigfoot. He flat beat Andy Brass here.
Watch the light.
Oh my, is that a close call? They're saying that Equalizer jumped the start. Here's another angle on another camera. See, Andy still hasn't started. See how long that light's been green? Exactly. Andy got caught asleep.
You can see when the wheels start to move. Which goes first, the green light or the wheels moving? To me, it's obvious from that viewpoint. Boy, great job by this camera crew, Scott.
Unfortunately, the TNT track crew unable to see all our different angles, and they disqualified the Equalizer.
Andy, any win's a good win. Congratulations to you on this one. The General Tire Bigfoot really looked good tonight.
Yes, it did. The truck was running real well tonight. You know, like I say, the win was a good win. I think Dave got it off, jumped the light a little bit and was red lighted, but I figured we might as well push it. They might not catch it, so we went for it anyway.
When you're as quick as you are, you know these guys are going to be doing that, right?
That's right. You know, everybody's coming up against us now. They're having to push their trucks hard. We've been running pretty hard with the truck. I don't think the truck's up to full capacity yet, but it's running well.
Okay, we're going to see you in just a minute. Right now, I need to get David in here. David, congratulations on a job well done. These people were really, really behind you, and really, I think you did the only thing you could do, babe. You just went for his throat.
Yeah, I got a little over anxious up there, they said, on the line, and said I was left a little bit too quick, but I was ready to go, and I wasn't ready to wait.
So the score was 1-1 in Memphis between Equalizer and Bigfoot, yet the psychological edge still belongs to the Equalizer. We're going to come back and watch the tiebreaker and see what happened next on Tuff Trax. Trax back to review all the great action in 1990 with the Major League in monster truck racing, the TNT Monster Truck Challenge. Week number 3 in Memphis. USA 1 getting his act together.
Steve Wilke coming and literally burying the front end of that truck down, trying to keep the horsepower working for him. Bigfoot took the win, but believe me, Steve Wilke and the USA 1, they are alive and well in Memphis.
I had to be impressed, especially after the struggling start in Charleston, West Virginia. Everett Jasmer's truck had it together, nose down, contact with the cars, and he gave Bigfoot all he wanted in Memphis, Tennessee. So when Army got to spend a moment with Steve Wilke, it was a different Steve Wilke that we had seen in Charleston. This Steve Wilke was confident, and he knows his truck is on the comeback trail and ready to challenge the big boys, like Bigfoot.
Well, that's the rear tire's hitting that first car again. She goes nose over, and anytime you run against one of the foot trucks, you got to lay it on the boards and hold it there, and that's what we did. And she got a little squirrely, but you drive it out.
Then it was like a replay of 1989. Semi-final round action. The defending world champion Equalizer against the guy who was the runner-up a year ago, Gary Porter, in the Carolina Crusher.
Well, everybody knows the story. This young man out of Tennessee teamed up with Gary Cook to win the world championship last year. They've got a team of about 3 people. Ray Thomas involved in it. They work on the truck, all 3 of them. Meanwhile, Porter sits over here. He's a privateer. He has to do all his own work himself. He cannot be working on the new truck when he's on tour. That's costing him time. We'll see a new Carolina Crusher later. Right now, we're looking at the old model.
The Equalizer showing that he is fresh and ready in 1990. He puts away the Carolina Crusher, getting the victory and moving into another matchup in the Monster Smash Final with that Bigfoot Ford. So Equalizer and Bigfoot, 1 win each, the 2 revolutionary suspensions hooking up for a 3rd time. Each had 1 win so far.
Who's it going to be?
Well, I hope it's going to be the Equalizer. I'm going to run, this next race is going to be really wild, I can tell you that.
Psychologically, Army, this may be the biggest race of the year for Bigfoot. Now, as we watch it, we'll develop the story. Bigfoot and Equalizer right here, side by side, too close to call. And we're going to look at it from several angles, but even after this race, Bigfoot, with all the hype and all the hoopla, still had not yet beaten Equalizer straight up, finished first across the line.
Oh, you're correct. The previous week, it was a technicality. The week before that, the young man in the red truck just put him away. But this is the first time this has ever happened in the sport. Ladies and gentlemen, a dead heat. Like Scott said, look at all the camera angles. And believe me, everybody was hawking it. The drivers themselves and their crew chiefs were asked to come and help make a decision as to what to do since it's the first time this had ever happened. Scott, tell them what the decision was.
Well, the decision was made, and it's one the fans in Memphis sure love, to run them again. Both drivers agreed, both owners agreed. There was nothing anybody else could do. Nobody wanted to just say, well, it's a tie and we split the money. Nobody was going to live with that. These 2 guys really felt like they needed to leave Memphis with a leg up on the other, and they had to do it on the course.
You know, it's like almost like sitting down and playing poker. Neither guy was going to show the other guy's hand. They want to back up and try it one more time. And the people in Memphis were treated to a super final.
Well, you see Billy Joe Miles and Ernie Diggs all in there in the discussion. All the officials got together, and the decision was made to go ahead and run them again. I think Butch Krieger told the fans here, let's listen.
We're going to run it over, ladies and gentlemen.
You can tell that was a popular choice.
You'd have think Memphis State just hit a 3-pointer with 2 seconds to go from that response. And this was the final we've been telling you about.
First time ever, a rerun of the Monster Smash. Bigfoot and Equalizer. Here they go. Very close again, but this time it was clear that Bigfoot had finally beaten Equalizer. No question, no ifs, ands, or buts on his 4th try.
You know, at the beginning of the year, everybody was a little bit, no, they weren't a little bit. They were really afraid of Bigfoot. Everybody but the Equalizer. Scott, he's not as tough as a lot of people think he's going to be.
Andy Brass and Bigfoot, the truck is outstanding, but Equalizer has plenty for him. As we saw after 3 weeks in Memphis, Tennessee, there was no clear-cut winner between the two. Yeah, Bigfoot ended up with 2 wins, Equalizer 1, but at the least, the second one was extremely controversial, and then this one was just a hair.
And remember, the rest of the drivers are building their new trucks to go outdoors.
Andy Brass cheering the decision. He finally got the win.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is an all-American story right here. The man with the dream is on my right, Bob Chandler. The man that took the dream to the winner's circle today, Andy Brass. And Andy, it just did not come easy in Memphis, did it?
No, it wasn't. You know, we would have to run a dead heat there with him and then turn around running again. We knew we were just going to have to push it, maybe pull the light a little bit.
He's tough.
Yes, he is. Dave's been running good all night. We've been watching these times. We was pulling 379. I don't know. Maybe we were sleeping a little bit or something because we went down to a 382. We backed up a little bit.
Back on Tuff Trax and a little new footage, if you will, Army. We're going to let the fans see what happened when the TNT Monsters went to Tallahassee, Florida. Semifinal action, Equalizer putting away the Carolina Crusher. Then, in the other semifinal, Pablo Cruz and Toughen Up to take on Scott Stevens and King Krunch.
Phoenix, Arizona on the far side. Houston, Texas on the near side. Texas takes that big win in Tallahassee.
So, King Krunch moves into the Monster Smash final against the Equalizer. Scott Stevens and David Morris, the finals in Tallahassee, the first week of competition down in the Sunshine State. Doesn't get much closer than that, but Equalizer recorded the victory nonetheless. All right, the second time around in Tallahassee, Gravedigger and King Krunch in the semifinals. Let's watch Dennis Anderson and Scott Stevens go toe-to-toe.
Keep in mind, Scott Stevens is really racking up these points by getting in the finals 2 weeks in a row.
And getting the victory over Dennis Anderson's Gravedigger. Carolina Crusher comes out to face Equalizer in the other semifinal. Once again, it's David Morris. Monster Smash final. Once again, second week in a row at Tallahassee. Equalizer and King Krunch. And Equalizer gets him again. It's time for the Crunch of the Week.
Hold on to your seats for the amazing Crunch of the Week, brought to you by Micro Machines, the #1 colossally collectible vehicles in the world. If it doesn't say Micro Machines, it's not the real thing.
We just looked at Tallahassee Army Crunch of the Week. No problem. John Moore out of Lafayette, Tennessee. He's going to join the TNT Clip Club.
You talked earlier about tagging the brakes. This is what happens when you tap it.
Wow.
On your head.
Man, oh man, oh man. John Moore and no problem almost landed in the seats at Tallahassee. Wow.
You know, John was actually sitting in a truck with a big smile on his face. He said, "There's something you always think about. Now I've lived through it." There he is, and the people in Tallahassee love him. As once again, you explained earlier in the show about how important it is not to touch your brakes. He had no hope. He had to go for the brakes, hope the bounce would be there. It all started right here when he got so much air. The front end went down. He's in trouble right now. The rear end touches. You've got to go for the brake at this point, and barely stays away from that wall, Scott.
Boy, and he almost again ended up in the seats. What a wild ride for John Moore, and no problem. The big Ford Bronco is this week's Crunch of the Week. Let's take a look now at the Restore Automotive Products TNT Monster Truck Challenge points through this part of the season. Equalizer #1. He's got a sizable lead, but it's not insurmountable by any means early on. King Krunch is strong running second. Digger holds third. Look at Bigfoot and Carolina Crusher. They both started late. They're both in the top 5. The consistent Dave Wieczorek in Nightlife. Then Tremor. USA 1 is not out of it despite early problems. The Outlaw has struggled as of late. And here comes Awesome Kong. What a worldwide battle it's going to be in 1990 to win this world championship. And next week, we go to Roanoke, Virginia, the old grave digger stomping grounds, as Dennis Anderson tries to grab a win in Roanoke. For Army Armstrong, I'm Scott Douglas. We'll look for you next week here on Tuff Trax.